welcome back to the Scoutcast. The game weeks are arriving swiftly. There's not much time to prepare, but we are here to help. Well, in theory. My name is Joe.
My name's Andy.
I'm Pranil. Most of you know me as WILDCARD.
Welcome everyone. Andy, what's coming up in the show?
I think a lot of this show will revolve around chips. So a lot of people using wildcards this week after kind of using their unlimited transfers in Gameweek 30. Plus, obviously, we're still waiting for that just to finish tonight's Man City game to go. Pranil's using his wildcard as well today or this week. So that'd be good to hear from. So we're looking at kind of how to build the perfect wildcard team, kind of who are the top picks, that kind of thing. There's also some people have got other chips left, bench boosts, free hits, etc. So we're going to talk about when's maybe best to play them. I think there's a good few different ways you can play them. And then, of course, we'll look at our Game Week 31 plans, captains, and all the usual differentials and clean sheets and stuff like that.
Okay, before we get on to all of that, we're just going to have a little peek and see how our game weeks are going so far. Now, I managed to catch a lot of the matches, listen to some or watch them. I didn't get to see the Liverpool-Everton one, though, so I'll be relying on you two for a bit of that. I was in fact doing one of these pub quizzes that I know lots of people are into at the moment, Zoom pub quizzes, and but one of my friends there was saying that one of their friends, a chap called Ben Tapp, is a fan of the Scoutcast. So hello Ben, I said I'd give you a little shout out there. So but moving on, Pranil, let's go with you first. I can scarcely believe my eyes. 112 points so far, and you're in the top 400. So let's get your team up. What went right?
Well, I went big on the double game week because I was sure I was going to wildcard this week. I was pretty happy with that result. I think the win for the people who invested heavily on double game week came on day one itself. Everything else was always going to be a bonus. That's the play that you have. You get 2 bites at the cherry. So, yeah, that went well. And 3 of my 5 single game weekers also came good in the form of Doherty, Jimenez, and Trent. So, yeah, pretty happy with that. Game week 13K rank. Not much to complain about.
No. Yeah, and also your wildcarding, which we're going to come on to as well. So, in a way, it doesn't really matter who you've got because they're going to go anyway. But it just so happens exactly. that combination is great. This is being recorded on Monday. Welcome all those watching on the live stream. So tonight we have the Man City game. I know all of us are tripling up there. So yeah, you're 112 with Sterling captain, De Bruyne and Aguero to go. It could be a pretty hefty score there. But lots of us have got that sort of Man City triple up. Fingers crossed for Aguero, for myself, and I'm sure Andy as well. So let's move on to your side, Andy. Now, you're like me. We're not in the same stratosphere as Pranil there. You got 77. So ups and downs, I imagine. How's it been going so far for you?
Yeah, it's 77. I mean, it doesn't look great when you look at all the Twitter scores. I think a lot of them are kind of bench boost scores, and I've kind of already used mine, so it's kind of inevitable that it'd be a little bit lower. But yeah, it was pretty rubbish because I went for the McBurney punt, which I know Az wants to give a shout out to me for going for that awful pick. Although he is currently outscoring Jesus, so I'm quite happy about that. Yeah, so I went for McBurney, which meant I didn't go for Henderson or a third defender. I probably would have gone for Henderson if I didn't go for McBurney. So that kind of hurt. And obviously Egan got a red card. Like, what do you do about that? It should never have been a yellow card, the first one, I don't think. And Lunshaw I knew was a risk. But for him to come on and actually just lose his appearance point because they conceded 2 goals when he was on the pitch, it was pretty rubbish. Yeah, 8 points from 2 Sheffield United defenders just did not go well at all. And I captained Aguero instead of De Bruyne. So far that hasn't gone well. I mean, I'm kind of expecting... I think potentially De Bruyne, Sterling and Aguero will all start tonight. And so obviously De Bruyne can increase that score even further. But I think a lot of people who don't own Aguero might be a bit worried tonight because obviously some people went for Jesus, he did nothing. And Aguero looked so much better in just 10 minutes than Jesus looked for the whole game. So I'm quite excited to see Aguero tonight.
Yeah, me too.
I'm on Sterling captain right now, but if I had the chance in hindsight, I would rather be on Aguero given where we are today. Yeah. I think he's got that explosive potential.
I think it's one of those things, isn't it, in FPL? You sometimes think the luck sort of evens itself out. And I think some of us who free hit it and some of us that went for, say, Leno and he was injured swiftly, Aubameyang missing those chances. and Aguero being benched and then coming on for 10 minutes and showing more than Jesus did in 10 minutes, and Aubameyang did in that match as well. A lot of unfortunate events there. So hopeful Aguero will get us out. So I'm really similar. Yeah, I've got 76. Similar things there. Leno injury. There's not much you can do about that. Not captain KDB. That hasn't worked out so far, obviously, but I'm hoping Aguero will do his stuff for me as captain. Sheffield United were poor in the second match. I'm lucky. I'm pleased I didn't triple up there, and I'm pleased even though it didn't work out. I took a punt there on going for El Ghazi instead. I went for a punt for an attacker rather than a defender. You see Mings there on my bench. I'm not bench boosting, so he remains there. I'm still not too bothered about that. Abraham was a punt that did not pay off. It was a free hit punt. I looked at the Villa game and I thought, wow. And sure enough, Villa were bad. Chelsea were good definitely towards the end. But yeah, I should have taken a free hit punt on Giroud. Who knew? But I was very pleased about Doherty. I said that I was thinking about Alonso, and there was some other sort of good moves there. But I just thought Doherty was the one. If I'm going to get a double-digit score from a defender on for 1 week, Doherty's the one. And so I'm pleased about that. So at the moment, I'm sort of okay. Bad bits, good bits. Some of them bad luck. Some of them bad decisions.
No one saw that Tammy bench coming. So
yeah.
Don't beat yourself over it.
Oh no at all. And also it's one of those things like you go into that with a Chelsea player and you know the risks. Apart from Azpilicueta, you're not sure who you're going to get starting. So you know the risks you're going to take, and that's what you do. It's the same why I've gone for Aguero and captained him. I know Aguero could be benched at any moment, but I also know he could get a hat-trick at any moment, and that's just the risk you take. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Fingers crossed, Aguero. I just want to mention, before we go on to the subjects we're talking about, particularly a perfect wildcard first, I want to mention a couple of roughs, really, and these are based on chips. Now, and a message on Twitter from FPL North. He thought he had his wildcard ready for Gameweek 31, so happily making transfers. He racked up about 24 points worth in hits before he pressed the button. Went to press the button. I remembered he'd used it way back before lockdown. So oops. Luckily, he's got his free hit. And so he said, should I use my free hit or take more hits to rectify it? No, just use your free hit. It's a good week. Game week 31 is a good week to free hit anyway. We're going to come on to that later. So potentially rough for FPL North. You never know though. This free hit in game week 31 could be an absolute rank boosting move. So could be good for FPL North. El Fozzy, aka Chris, who actually runs Fantasy Football Scout. This can happen to everyone. He set up a marvellous bench boost. Henderson in goal, Harvey Barnes, Egan, and Sace at Wolves. Only problem, he didn't actually activate the button. So that horrible realisation where you suddenly, you think, I've got this nice bench, and then, oh no. So 26 points on the bench. Could have been much worse. Luckily, and on the plus side, 2 plus sides here. One, he's still got the bench boost still to play, and he missed Egan's red card. So he's possibly the only person who got Egan in and actually still missed his red card. So sort of well done. Let's move on. Perfect wildcard team, if using it now. And particularly interested in what Pranel's got to say about this. I'm sure this guy's on your wildcard, and I can't believe he's not on everyone's wildcard. Fernandez at Manchester United. Lots are wildcarding this week. Perhaps it may be better to wait. Nevertheless, it's a good week to assess who we should be considering for the long term. There's some questions for the community about wildcarding and players to target. I've sort of divided them up into premiums, heavy hitters, also looking at and then looking at differentials as well, and then also finally goalkeepers, because I know me and Pranel were talking before about goalkeepers in particular, and I think Andy might be interested as well, because you also have Leno.
I do, yeah.
Let's start with those premiums then. So here's some questions here. I'll just sort of run through them and I'll go to both of you here. So The classic question from Karen14: Salah or Mane? Will they be worth it once Liverpool has won the league? Rishi asks, what is the best Manchester United trio to target if going for all three? And Ben Caraway turns attention to Man City here. Are there any worth going for above KDB? So it's assuming that KDB is a bit essential there. Yes, they are dominant, but rotation and risk of one pointers is huge. And then finally, on these premiums, FPL Yogi asks, is Aubameyang a keep, sell, or hold? Okay, so Pranal, let's go with you first. You're working out your wildcard at the moment. Who are the definite premiums there? Lots that I've mentioned there from those teams?
Let's get the cat out of the bag. I'm not keeping any City players in my wildcard team at the moment for 2 weeks, but that's the way I play. I like shifting my big hitters. So there's a little bit of a thinking involved there because actually won't be surprised if we see limited minutes for De Bruyne today because they played Chelsea on Friday and then the FA Cup game is like 2 days later. And then they have Liverpool after. So, there's a big chance of limited minutes for whichever City asset you go for. The only two I'm considering on my wildcard are Edison and Phil Foden. Phil Foden would be like an eighth attacker in my team because I think he's going to get minutes. So these are the two I'm considering.
Okay.
Out of the big hitters, the question Salah versus Mane, we've not seen Salah play. We don't know how sharp he is. But I do think he's going to be fit. He was going to come on if it wasn't for that defensive injury to Matip. And when it comes to picking between the two, it's always going to be a 51-49 call. There's a player you're going to like, go with him. The pro with Mane is that we've seen him play. He looked pretty sharp. Salah is slightly more greedier, and he's going for the Golden Boot, and Milner's injured. So he's definitely on pens. So, it's always going to be your call when it comes to the premiums. When it comes to the Aubameyang call, I didn't own him for the double game week, but he is a consideration for me on my wildcard for the next 2 weeks because I think with eight weeks to go, you have to try searching for as many hauls as you can. And I like his next two. I think Southampton have been pretty tight. It's the Norwich fixture which is attracting me. If I didn't have a wildcard and if I was looking at transferring him out, I probably wouldn't. I think he's a good hold for 2 weeks. He looked more shot friendly than usual against Brighton. I thought he looked pretty sharp, and I like that Saka is supplying to him. So I think he's a good. I think maybe buy is a stretch, but definitely not a sell in my opinion.
Yeah.
Who else do we want to talk about?
Yeah. Talking about those sort of premium options there, we're talking Man United, Man City, Aubameyang. I'm not going to just say all of Arsenal. It's just basically Aubameyang. And also we're obviously looking at that range of Mane, Salah. How do you spread the budget around as well? So no other sort of premiums in the reckoning for you, Chelsea perhaps, or?
Chelsea. The problem with Chelsea is you don't know who's going to start. Lampard got on 2 attacking subs at the 55th or 60th minute to change the game. I think that's always going to happen with Chelsea because they've got a wide squad, and Lampard isn't going to be afraid to make those subs. And all the players coming off the bench are young and hungry. So I'll wait for a couple of weeks before investing in Chelsea. And when it comes to the City assets, I'm not going to not go with them for the season. I just think it's a worthwhile punt trying to find a haul this week and the next week, and then get them on in Gameweek 33. I've spoken to you previously. I'm not afraid to shift those big hitters. I treat them as 4th and 5th midfielders. So yeah, I'm looking at them after 2 weeks when you can figure out who the players to go for are. United, I think United and Wolves are your golden ticket teams. They've got good fixtures right through the end. I'm going with a double up. Bruno is in there, and I was thinking about either going in with Rashford or Martial. I like Pogba as a punt too. I was on Rashford, but I think I might switch to Martial now because I think you are going to get that extra point for a goal. You're going to get that extra point for a clean sheet. And Rashford didn't look that sharp, I thought Tony had 2 great chances. And I also think there are more options should I want to switch somebody in the midfield. So I'm thinking about that 3-4-3 versus 3-5-2 formation. Right now, there are way more options in midfield, which is why I think going for 3-5-2 is something I'm preferring right now. I mean, it all changes if something spectacular happens later tonight or, something comes to me tomorrow. But yeah, at the moment, I'm going with Tony, Bruno, and then Wan-Bissaka in defense.
Okay.
Jimenez, I mean, he's as steady as it can get on the wildcard. I like him as an option as well.
And also, I was just going to say, also among the premiums as well, there's the Spurs players as well. They do have, they're not as good fixtures as Manchester United, but they're still good fixtures. And they've certainly got a good fixture against West Ham coming up.
Yeah.
For me, I saw it. Kane, just a no-no. Because he wasn't even presenting eye test, underlying stuff. There was nothing FPL related that I wanted. But Son, however, had lots, and he continues to have lots I want. Is he on your wildcard side?
Yeah, he's in my team.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's so many good fixtures this week, and the teams that have a good fixture this week, they pretty much have a decent run right till the end.
Yeah.
So Son's in there as well. That's the reason why I'm deciding to go without Man City for these first 2 weeks, because I do feel we have good teams with lots to play for, having good fixtures in the next 2-3 weeks, where I'm sort of treating this like a Christmas period where I'm trying to pick players that their managers can't drop, that are essential to the team's success. That's kind of what my thinking is when I'm building my wildcard team.
When I wildcarded way back in the midst of time in February, one of the decisions I was faced with was so Fernandes wasn't an option when I wildcarded, but he did the week after. I went for Son. I went for Son and KDB there, and it would have been it wouldn't have been ideal for me in the structure and flexibility to have Son, Fernandes, and KDB. And I noticed with your wildcard, not going for the City options, but going for Son and Fernandes as well. So it sounds like the same train of thought is still going on, more than 100 days later, of fitting all of them in. And for me, unfortunately for Son, he got injured as soon as I got him in. He did well, then got injured, and then so I suddenly had space for Fernandes. But if he hadn't got injured, I would have been faced with a bit of a decision. It was taken out of my hands. But yeah, it sounds like you're actually brave enough to make that decision because all of them are available and all of them look great assets. Andy, so you're in a similar situation to me. You've already wildcarded, but from some of those premiums that we've mentioned before, particularly some of those Man United ones as well, what are your thoughts about the must-have premiums for the wildcard going forward?
I'm pretty happy with the wildcard discussion. Most of the players people are getting in are already in my team, so I'm quite happy. I think just to kind of go through the question, so Salah or Mane, if I've got Salah, and I agree, I think he probably will start the next game because he was about to come on before I think it was an injury to Matip happened. So it looks like I would have been more assured if he got a few minutes, but I think it's like he will. If I was picking again, though, I'd probably just go Mane simply because he has played already, and more to the point, I don't know what top 10k ownership is, but his overall ownership is lower, and I'm trying to chase rank, and I don't see. I know Salah's on penalties, and Milner's probably going to be injured for a few game weeks now, but I don't know if I would bet on Salah massively outscoring Mane, so I would just take the chance that Mane scores more, and potentially with a lower ownership could pump me up the rankings a bit more. I don't think there's a lot in it, as we always say. I've got triple Man United, and I've got exactly the ones mentioned. Martial, Fernandes are my attackers. I think a lot of people said that Martial didn't play that well, but the thing is, he kind of does that a lot. Looks like he isn't playing well, and then he'll get a few chances and he'll put them both away. He's cheaper than Rashford. He's playing up front. Clean sheets, like Pranil mentioned as well. I don't think Rashford's a bad pick, and I think it'd be really easy to say that a lot of players didn't play well this week. It is the first game back after a long time out, and obviously players like Rashford have got it even worse because they haven't played for a while with injuries. So I don't think Rashford's a bad pick, but I'm pretty happy with Martial. If you wanted to double up on Man United, I think Sheffield United's a great fixture at the moment. And then I've got Maguire at the back, but I don't. A bit like Manny Salah, I don't think there's a huge difference between Maguire and Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka potentially attacking threat, but I don't think he's improved a considerable amount where I would expect too many assists. The good thing about Maguire is he now has Fernandes pumping balls at him.
Yeah.
from set pieces, which I kind of like. But I wouldn't really argue. I wouldn't like die on a hill to say Maguire's better than Wan-Bissaka. So I am tripping up on Man United. I would at least double up, I think, going forward. So I just think the value's there. Their prices are so good. And the other one, like Aubameyang, I wouldn't keep Aubameyang on a wild card. I know the next two fixtures are good. I suppose it depends how many hits or transfers you're happy to make to get rid of him. I just don't know about Arsenal. I know they did okay against Brighton, and Norwich is obviously a really good fixture. Potentially, if you've got your free hit left, that might be a good week to use it and get him back in. I don't know. I just think Calvert-Lewin's got Norwich this week. Jimenez is like a must. I think he's almost must own for his price and his fixtures. So I'm struggling to fit Aubameyang in. I would probably keep De Bruyne, I think, because I just think he can do it against anyone. And Chelsea is not a tough fixture for Man City, I don't think. Liverpool's going to be interesting because if Man City don't lose tonight, or if they don't drop points, the title deciding game will be Man City versus Liverpool. So I don't know how I would call that game. I'm assuming it'll be quite tight. So I quite like the move of not owning De Bruyne and getting him back in, but I think I would just have him. Like, he's just been so good this year. It's almost fair probably. So yeah, I think the main ones kind of Pranil mentioned, to be honest. I'd go Mane, triple Man United. I'd be pretty happy with that, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there's one that we didn't speak about. I think that's, again, a pretty good option for the longer run. Talking about Jamie Vardy. I thought he looked fairly sharp. I mean, a few misplaced passes and all of that, but he managed to get a couple of good chances. And I quite liked how Leicester played. I mean, everybody was, you notice we had very few first half goals. Most of them came in the second half. Everyone's still kind of getting into the rhythm. And I think Leicester have enough quality. I like him as a premium option as well amongst the strikers.
Yeah, no, it's good that you did mention Jamie Vardy. There's also the added incentive of Golden Boot. And I think is he coming up to 50 Premier League goals? Is it only 50? Must be more than that. He's got he's got a landmark coming up. For me, if I was wildcarding, I would go for Mane over Salah, and that was purely because we haven't seen Salah play. That suggests his minutes will be managed in the first game back, and against Crystal Palace, Mane or Salah are very captainable. Plus, I'm a veteran owner of Salah or Mane, and only once have I come a cropper by owning one, really, and not the other. I owned both at that time, but only once have I come a cropper with one of them, and that was when Mane got injured, when everyone triple captained either him or Salah. I obviously triple captained Mane there. But apart from that, I've been a very happy Mane owner whilst watching Salah score, because Mane usually does well, and just pick one. But if you're wildcarding, I would probably go for Mane at the moment. But if you've got Salah, and you're not wildcarding, it's a luxury move to start juggling Salah and Mane around. Just stick with whoever you've got. And as Pranil mentioned, Milner is injured at the moment, which means Salah will be on penalties as well. He's going to play. If he's fit, he's going to play for these matches, because these are prestige matches where they're going to win the league. There was also, I noticed that there were a few changes in the squad for Liverpool against Everton, but Klopp has said that before about the Merseyside derby. I know there's no crowd there, but he wants players to experience the Merseyside. He wants his players to experience the Merseyside derby. He's a real football romantic, jumpers on goalposts and all that kind of stuff. That's what he is all about, and he wants people to experience that. And so that's why he would have put a lot of those types of players in as well. So that's another thing of his. He's done that before in the Merseyside derby. For Fernandes, a must. There we go. Rashford, a maybe. I'm quite happy to have him. I'd like to see more of him. So Wan-Bissaka I quite fancy over Maguire, purely for the attacking returns there. It's just, I don't know about whether they're going to definitely get clean sheets all the time, and I quite like Wan-Bissaka's potential for assists there. But I think one or two is fine at the moment, but see how they're going, and I think a triple up is fine. I think that Martial is a good bet as well, but just he's a wait and see for me, and I've been burnt lots of times before with Martial. Always seems to get surprise injuries, and with everyone getting injuries at the moment, all teams suffering from it, I don't want a player that has got a history of injuries on my team. Man City, they will score and they will be benched. Whoever you get in, be prepared to see them bench, be prepared to see them haul for you. They are dispensable the next couple fixtures, though, I think. I like their price points, though, and so if you are thinking of getting Man City in a bit later, have a think about who you might get it, who is going to fulfil that Aguero price point. How are you going to get KDB back in if you haven't got him already? Things like that. Make sure you've got those price points there, so it's easy to move back in for them. But depending on the news, now Aubameyang is probably the biggest one for me, because I was on social media at the weekend saying a little bit incendiary. Saying that experienced managers would keep Aubameyang. And I'm not saying if you don't own him, so if you're wildcarding, there are lots of options. You have lots of options. But if you own him now and you don't have a wildcard and you have other moves you want to make, keep Aubameyang, because he's got Southampton and he's got Norwich. And against Brighton, he was good. He blanked, but he was good. And people will look at the blank and go, that's it, Aubameyang, over. Game over. Gone. But he's not. He could get the golden boot again. 7 shots against Brighton, 4 in the box, 3 on target. In their last match, all Premier League players, so last match, still got some matches to go. Some have played twice, but in their last match, only 3 strikers achieved 4 shots in the box. Yeah, that's right. Aubameyang was one, Ings was another, and Joe Ellington was the other, the surprise package of the game week so far. Joe Ellington and Aubameyang both got 3 shots on target to Ings' 1. So they're actually a bit more accurate. I know I'm not for a minute saying definitely get Joe Ellington for the long haul, but I am saying Aubameyang is up their stats, he's got the fixtures. For me, he's a keep. I can understand if you're wildcarding not going for him, but at the moment if you've got him, you know what's going to happen when you get rid of him. Double digit haul. Let's move on to some differentials. We've got some questions here. Babino's forehead. Who are the best differentials on a wildcard? Greyhead. Who are the best budget players? So he's thinking of differentials, but also cheap ones as well. So just those 2 questions kind of round it up, really. Go with you first, Andy. If you're wildcarding now or just in general, which differentials and cheap players are you looking for the long haul?
Yeah, I just list a few. I mean, I've looked at overall ownership. Obviously, top 10k, top 100k is probably different and probably a bit higher for most of these players. But there's a few that stand out. They've pretty much already been mentioned. Like, if you wanted to take a big differential punt for Man United, then Pogba is much lower owned than the other attackers. And he looked very good when he came on. The only thing I would say is we were chasing the game at that point, and we did put like every attacker we had on the pitch. So it was probably more likely that he would bomb forward like he did. In a normal match, would he be the one that far forward? Would it be Fernandes? I think we still have to wait and see exactly how we set up. But he's very low owned, 3.5%. I think Wolves, already mentioned, just so good. And Sykes is 4.2%. So everyone's looking at Doherty, but Sykes is so much cheaper. Also offers a bit of attacking threat as well. He's very low owned. And I've got a whole list here, but I'll just pick out one more. I think the fact that Saka started twice for Arsenal is very promising if anyone needs maybe a 4th mid, but definitely like a 5th mid. 5.4% owned, 4.7 million. So the fact that he played left back, and then as soon as left back's taken up, he's just pushed forward. I think he shows how much Arteta kind of likes him and wants him in that team. I think it was only him, Aubameyang, and a couple of defenders that started both games. So that's pretty promising, I would say. And in terms of budget, I know James Justin's come up quite a lot, 4.7 for Leicester. They've only kept 2 clean sheets in the last 15 league games. So I don't know how many clean sheets are coming. Their fixtures are they're not awful, but they're not like a fantastic run. Like Brighton at home is pretty good, but then it's Everton. I would expect Everton to score against Leicester. They got Arsenal coming up as well. Spurs and Man United before the end of the season as well. So I don't particularly like him that much. I would rather get in someone like Holgate, Lascelles, Taylor a little bit cheaper, potentially a bit more clean sheet potential coming as well. So budget picks, I'd go for those defenders. I think if I was playing 3-5-2, I'd probably go for someone like Nketiah, 4.4 million. I don't think he's going to see as much game time as Saka, but Arteta was kind of talking him up again. I know Lacazette started, but he should see some minutes as well.
It's good to hear that, because he was my differential for the next 4 game weeks last Scoutcast. I know it's Pranel's turn a bit later for that. So yeah, fingers crossed. I'm still hopeful that he'll do well. I think you're right there. I think these are good ones to target. Pranel, what about you? Obviously, you are wildcarding. So who are your differentials there, and also your budget picks?
I quite agree with all the picks that Andy mentioned. Pogba was on my list as well. He's very intriguing for those that are sort of chasing the game. And when people think about whether he's going to be deep or whether he's going to be the 10, I think the sort of fixtures that United have, I think both Pogba and Bruno will end up playing as eights, sort of like Man City, because I think we're going to dominate possession. The fixtures are silly. So I like him as a pick. That's one of the reasons. I don't think he's going to sit very deep because of the fixtures we have. Outside of that, there's a pick that's in my team, Richarlison. I thought he looked very sharp yesterday. As soon as I saw the game, I was like, he's the first name on my team. I like his fixture against Norwich. I'm even considering giving him the armband for this week because he's got many routes to points. He's always in the box. He's a good header of the ball. He's looked very fit. I mean, that's what I was trying to look for when I was watching the first set of games. And there are a few people who stood out in terms of sharpness. And I'm talking about St. Max. I'm talking about Adama. Richarlison was one of them as well. Outside of that, we have the two Watford boys. Both are fairly lowly owned. I thought they gave Leicester a good game. They do have a lot to play for. So I like both Sarr and Doucouré as options. Sarr, if you have 6.2, I think he's got more explosive potential because I think he's the one he's the only counter-attacking outlet that Watford have at the moment. And if Watford are going to keep possession, we have Doucouré playing in the number 10 position, pretty much a striker. So if you are strapped for cash, I like Doucouré as an option as well. I think these are the few of the gems. And Marshall, we already spoke about. He's, again, not that highly owned, so I quite like him as a potential. He's done well for me in the past, actually. He's kind of like a flat-track bully. I think when Pogba comes into the team, he's going to get a host of chances as well. And he's very predictable. He does well against the weaker teams. So I like him as a pick.
Yeah, Marshall is great. If he plays, he's great. But it's just it's that heart sink moment where they say, and Martial hasn't got on the team bus. Oh, really?
Yeah.
But
and plus there's a slight Igalo threat as well. I mean, a little bit. I mean, if he has one or two more bad games, we have Igalo. But I think the difference in quality between the two players is pretty apparent. So I don't think you need to worry too much.
No.
And if you're talking about the low-priced funds, I like Saka that Andy spoke about. I like Foden. I quite like Armstrong as well. I thought he had a really good game. Really strong game. Slightly more expensive for that fifth midfielder spot. But again, a good option that's going to play every game. And actually, if you are going for a 3-5-2 and you're okay letting go of one more United confirmed attacking asset or defensive asset, I like Greenwood as well. I thought Dan James had a terrible game. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Greenwood starting the next one as well. And he's bulked up and everything. So I think Solskjaer can't afford to drop any more points. So I like him as an 8th attacker as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think with 5 substitutes, we're going to see these players get more minutes. You're probably not going to get many 0 minutes from them, but you might get the dreaded 1 point for them. But you're going to get more minutes, and we're seeing lots more action in the second half. So, for example, it didn't work out for John Lundstrom, but when I saw John Lundstrom wasn't starting, he was in my free hit side, I didn't mind because I just thought, okay, John Lundstrom against Newcastle for 30 minutes, I'll take that. It turns out it didn't work out, but you never know. So you definitely think that about your Man City attackers. God, Aguero could have come away with a double-digit score in 10 minutes in the previous match against Arsenal. It wasn't to be, but it could have happened. Very close. So for me, Newcastle are full of low-owned, completely neglected gems. I just want to mention, actually, lots of people in the chat are saying, who the hell is Joe Ellington that Joe's mentioning? Well, that's how you pronounce his name. Have a look on Pronounce on YouTube, or have a chat to a Brazilian person, like I did, who was in hysterics that everyone is going, Joe Linton. He's not called Joe Linton, he's called Joe Ellington. So thanks so much to Billy Pigeon in the live stream, who's been my champion of pronunciation there. It's not often I get one. So anyway, so I think the Newcastle are full of low-owned gems. I think Matt Ritchie, if you can stretch that far, I think is really good for the next 3, and it's a good price point to hop back over to Manchester United defender if you want. He's got Villa, Bournemouth and West Ham coming next. That Matt Ritchie o'clock, definitely. Fernandez and Lascelles are great if you fancy some clean sheets there, some bonus points. And of course, Joe Ellington if you really want to take a risk. Already 4 shots and all were in the box. So, I think for me as well, I'm also looking at Southampton. Because I've got to think about, and we're going to come to this, bench boosting. And I've got to think about bench boosting single game week. And who are the sort of high impact players that are cheap and differentials. And for me, the likes of Matt Ritchie are definitely there. Maybe won't want to play them every week, but I quite like to have them on a bench boost. But Southampton players, so targeting some of those fixtures where Southampton are doing good. I've got McCarthy and Stevens already. So I'd perhaps be looking at Armstrong. He's really cheap in midfield, and I think he's matching. He could possibly exceed Ings' points because he gets those extra points as a midfielder. So Armstrong, definitely one there, and some of those Arsenal ones for the next couple, I think are really good options as well. Foden for Man City afterwards. An option would be, if you're thinking of someone like Saka, perhaps move on to Foden or Armstrong after game week 33. That's another option. You see, the theme for me with all these is I'm not really thinking about the player, I'm thinking about the price point. And I'm thinking who they could become or who they move around to. It doesn't work out every time, but it's just, it makes my life as a fantasy manager a bit easier for all that.
I'd like to add a little bit here. A few people in the chat were asking about Foden. So when it comes to Man City, right, my thinking is we need to look at the team sheets and try to decipher Pep. And he's mentioned that he's going to rotate the players, right? So if later in the season, if I see Gabriel Jesus starting a game and the next game is 3 days later, I'm going to try getting in Aguero for that game and giving him the armband because they have great fixtures. That's the same thing with Phil Foden, and why I like him is because we're going to see rotation. He doesn't cost too much as your 8th attacker. And when you decide to play him, you do that on the basis of minutes. I mean, it's sort of like a strategy play where you see that, okay, Foden's not played the last game. He's looked good so far. I'm giving him a start this week. And he's got tremendous upside. He's a goal scorer. I mean, I love what I saw of him in the 15, 20 odd minutes that we saw the other day. That's why I like him as a pick. You need to know how to use him in your team.
Let's move on to goalkeepers. Got a few questions about that. Just FPL Physio just sums it up really. Best goalkeeper from now until the end of the season. For Leno owners like me and Andy, that we need to make that move pretty quick really. So for me, I'll just go first with this. It's between two, Foster and Pope. If you've got Leno, it's a really easy move to make. Good price point there. Both have save, bonus and clean sheet potential. Both are reasonable keepers to rotate with McCarthy. So particularly for me, if you've got McCarthy as well. So for example, when Southampton have this terrible little run in a few game weeks time of City, Everton and Manchester United, during that time, Pope has Sheffield United, West Ham and then a bad one against Liverpool. So 2 of them is a bit better. Watford, however, they've got Chelsea, that's a bit bad, but then they've got Norwich and Newcastle at home. Foster against Norwich and Newcastle at home. I like that. So for me, I'm minded to go for Foster. So my head would say Pope, but Foster, my heart says, because he's my favourite goalkeeper of all time in FPL. He's been there that long. And but yeah, Andy, you've got to make this decision as well soon. Who are you going to go for?
I've never considered so many different goalkeepers. Honestly, I think you can make an argument for so many. Like if you wanted to target the Man United defence but didn't want to go for Wan-Bissaka or Maguire, then you got De Gea. I'm strongly considering Patricio because their fixtures are so good. Their clean sheet record when Bolly's in the team is incredible this year. It's like 8 clean sheets in 14 games. The only I have Saiss and Jimenez. So the only downside is, of course, once I get Patricio, unless I make other swaps for those 2 players, I'm blocking myself from getting Doherty or Jota. And Jota, I've not really gone off Jota, but I don't know if he would be the priority over Doherty. So I would have double Wolves clean sheets, but I wouldn't have the main man. So that's my only worry about him. But Patricio is cheaper, and so far has outscored Doherty, but obviously a lot of that is a minutes thing. So including him, Foster and Pope, they're both good options. I would just always go to Pope. I think the fixtures are slightly better than Watford. There's not a huge amount in it, but I think they're slightly better. And I don't think in terms of saves and bonus, Foster is a better option than Post. So he's probably my leading candidate. But also Martinez at Arsenal is only 4.2 million. Yes, he's probably not going to get as many points as the rest, but he's extremely cheap and he doesn't need to for that price.
No, he's a backup.
You play him or McCarthy. You could basically get 2 playing keepers for like 8.7 million, and I don't have. My team value is okay, but it's not amazing. So that would let me spend more elsewhere. So I'm honestly considering loads. I think Patricio, if I didn't want Doherty, would probably be the one. But I'm going to go. I expect I'll go Pope if I end up making a transfer at some point.
Yeah. So Prano, you are wildcarding as well. So similar position really to us. That you got to make a goalkeeper switch.
Yep.
So yeah, who are you thinking?
Again, with Andy, I've considered so many options this week. I quite like the names that you guys have mentioned. I was earlier on Pope, but I think Watford have a little more motivation than Burnley do. So I like Foster as an option. But I'm thinking if I do have some cash, I'm going to try fitting in Patricio there. I think he's the best option for that price. A couple of names that haven't been mentioned. I think if your team structure supports it, I think Edison is a good keep and forget at that price point. And I'm actually even looking at Hugo Lloris and Fabianski. These are the 2 names that I've considered as well. West Ham in 2 weeks have great fixtures, and Fabianski is a noted save machine. Yeah. So that's something you can look at. And Lloris, Spurs, if you sort the fixtures from this game week to the end, first, Spurs are 3rd on the defensive ticker. The Scout. So, and Lloris is a good keeper. And I think the time that we have now without crowd, it's going to suit Jose because he's not going to have to attack all that much. And Spurs could be defensively tighter. I read a couple of articles which said that he really wanted to implement a system with Ben Davies in the team, which he's getting to do right now. So I quite like Lloris as an outside shot as well.
Okay. Yeah, traditionally Lloris is always neglected because if the Spurs' defence hasn't historically been very good, and also there's been other options, Son or Kane in the past, or Ali, and it's nice to people think
he's 5'3" now, not that expensive. Also.
But having said that, the options are diminishing. I'm thinking Son and maybe Bergwijn or whoever. But yeah, there's certainly a place for Lloris. I'm certainly not looking to triple up on Spurs at any point. So. For outfield players, so I think that's a good shout. Let's move on to those who have got a different chip left, a free hit or a bench boost, or perhaps they want to keep their wildcard for a bit longer as well. So what we're looking at is a bit more forward thinking here. Is thinking when to free hit and when to wildcard. But Pranal, this is your section, so yeah, tell us a bit about it.
I think a lot of people we had a lot of questions coming in with regards to when to use the bench boost, when to use the wildcard, and when to use the free hit. First thing that you need to think about is when to play the wildcard. A lot of people are looking at free hitting this week, seeing out the Man City versus Liverpool fixture next week, and then wildcarding in 33. And the reason that I read, right, is that my team is good enough. Now, my question to you is, with 8 weeks in, why is good enough good enough? Shouldn't you be going for the ideal team? It's not that difficult to pull together a really good team for the next 8 weeks. And I feel like the free hit will be much more useful later in the stage. Especially in Gameweek 38, because we could have a lot of fully team use. If we don't have a lot of team use, we know that managers look to play different players, etc., etc. And when I look at the fixture shifts, right? I think except for West Ham, there's not much of a fixture shift 33 onwards. If your team Wolves have a good fixture this week and 33 onwards, United have a good fixture this week and 33 onwards. The same is the case with Everton. The same is the case with Spurs. So I don't see my team changing too much, if I wildcard in 31 or 33. That's why I personally recommend wildcarding right now. Play aggressive. It's 8 weeks. Play aggressive. And also, we're seeing a lot of injuries, etc. So there could be a week where your player's injured for a week or 2 weeks. And if, there are problems, you can free hit that week. So it's nice to have that chip in my back pocket. I do see value in waiting for 33 in terms of getting more data and all of that. But how much more data will we get? And 2 weeks in a 8 game week window, is a pretty big period. So I mean, it's also the manager that I am. I always recommend people to be much more aggressive with their play, and I think with 8 weeks to go, you need to push the pedal. So yeah, if you're wildcarding this week, then say the free hit for game week 38, or when your team needs it in terms of injuries, or you might notice that a certain team has great fixtures that week. Just wait for it. You don't need to pre-decide, and if that need for using the free hit doesn't come, use it in 38. If you are wildcarding 33, I see the value in free hitting this week, because this week there's a lot of standout fixtures, and you can build a really aggressive attacking team. When it comes to bench boosting, a lot of people ask, when is the best time to bench boost? I mean, it depends on your team.
Yeah.
Look at your current team. Look at the people on the bench and see when they have the best fixture and play the bench boost. I mean, I tried looking into this, and in game week 31, which is this week, outside of Sheffield, no one who people might have because of last week, everybody else has a pretty good fixture. So this week could be a good week to bench boost if you've got the keepers, if you've got no keeper problems, etc. But you need to look at your team. We can't give any advice,
No, I think that's a good. There isn't with the bench boost. It's like when's the best time to wildcard or free hit. These are all dependent on your team, but it is good to look at those fixtures and then look at your team and think, which is more suitable for that. And you've obviously, on paper, if you have all your chips left, like you've had, you can using the limited transfers to make the most of this current game week's bench boost and then wildcard the hell out of it is on paper the most sensible and the best move. And as you said, it suits your style, Pral, because of that aggressive nature of it. I've had that conversation about how much information do you need about wildcarding with Mark so many times on the Scoutcast in the past, and he would make that move to be aggressive with that. And make that move early, and I was always a bit cautious about wildcarding. Usually, not this season, but usually I would be a bit more cautious about it, and often it pays off to be a bit more aggressive a bit earlier. Andy, what about you? You've got none of these chips left, but are there any game weeks you're worried about? Because you're up against those that are using chips. Do you think that those they're going to perhaps wildcard at this particular time or free hit this particular time, and you're worried about game week 38? What worries you as a non-chipper?
I don't think I am that worried, to be honest. Like I've already said, a lot of people that are wildcarding this week seem to be building to a similar-ish team, not necessarily exactly the same, but the key players are very similar to what my team is looking like. I've used my bench boost and it went well, so it doesn't really matter if other people do well. There's nothing I can do about that anyway. Free hit, there's a few. I mean, I don't think I really have a huge amount to add to what's already been said, to be honest. Like the best times to use it. Some people are going to use it or have talked about using it in game week 32 to dodge the Liverpool Man City game, which could be really tight. It could also be open. We've seen plenty of goals in that fixture in kind of Pep versus Klopp. I remember I think Liverpool put 4 past them or 5 past them at one point. So that could be an open-ish game. I think the fact it's a title decider might kind of quash that, but you just don't know. So you could use it to dodge that fixture, but who's to say that Salah, Mane, De Bruyne, etc. won't do well in that game anyway, like they always do. So I think if you really wanted to delay the wild card, then free hit this week or next week to dodge that fixture, probably the best. But I wouldn't. I'm kind of the same. If I had it, I wouldn't be too worried about when I'm going to play it. I would just wait until the right time, because who knows what happens in 4 or 5 weeks. It could be injuries, players who come into form, etc. And you've always got the backup of just using it in the final game week when all the teams are probably, I mean, it could still change, we don't know, but probably going to play at the same time. Might get some early team leaks. Managers tend to be a little bit more open with who they're going to play, especially if they've got nothing to play for. Ex-player might come in because they've not had too many minutes, they deserve a place. Klopp may say that they've won the league and certain players haven't had enough minutes. So you might get a little bit more information. So I wouldn't be worried about free hit. I think wildcard, you use it. There is only 8 weeks left. What are you waiting for, I suppose? And bench boost, obviously, it depends on your bench, like it's already been said. I looked at game week 33. Newcastle play West Ham. A lot of people have got Lascelles. Burnley play Sheffield United. If you've got a few Sheffield United defenders left over, especially if you haven't got your wild card. I've got Egan left over, for example. you could use it then. And McCarthy's a playing keeper. He does play Man City that week, but you're running out of weeks to use it. So it depends on your bench. But yeah, I think wildcard this week seems the best option, because I think what people forget is they have transfers. This team is not your team for the next 8 weeks, so you can change it as you go. Really.
Okay. Well, for the sake of balance, I'm gonna advocate wildcard in game week 33. So here's now I don't have a wildcard, so this is if I had a wildcard, I'd be thinking about it obviously this week, but also the other week I would be looking at it. It'd be game week 33, and that is because I do think there is a bit of a fixture shift there, as opposed to the current teams that are have good fixtures, and the good fixtures you kind of maybe not want them long term. So I had a look, divided up game weeks 31 and 32, and then 33 to the end. And the top teams in game week 31 to 32, according to the Fantasy Football Scout season ticker, are and this is fixtures. So ignore the fact that you don't like Arsenal. Arsenal are top. So Aubameyang is a very good option now, less so further on. Arsenal, Newcastle, Wolves and Burnley. Wolves are still there. Burnley are still trucking along. But suddenly Newcastle are right up there. So this could be a good team to target now. And the worst are Liverpool, Sheffield United and Man City. So they're all good. But then you look at game week 33 and 38 and it's all changed. Man City are suddenly the best. Manchester United fixtures carry on being good. So that's good. As Pranav was saying, there is certain things that aren't different. They just carry on. Wolves, for example, carry on. Liverpool's fixtures suddenly improve loads, but who will start? Tottenham's fixtures improve, and Arsenal's go very bad, and so too do Newcastle's. So you do not want Newcastle and Arsenal long term, but for the immediate, short term, medium term, good options there. So that's what I would, for those that are holding their wildcard, I think it's a good move to go doing game week 33 as well. Bench boost, as Pranel said, it's going to be entirely who you're targeting. So you want players to do well in a week that are cheap, that are good differentials, that could get you a good haul, maybe just get you a clean sheet. Remember, this is a single game week. You ain't going to get 2 shots of the Sheffield United defence or 2 shots of the Villa defence here. So for me, Southampton fit that bill. I have McCarthy and Jack Stevens, so I will be targeting a week where I think Southampton have a good chance of getting a clean sheet. And for me, I think that would look like, having a look at the ticker here, I would think game week 36 when they play Brighton, or game week 37 when they play Bournemouth, are very good bets there. So if you're targeting Southampton, so for me, someone like Armstrong looks a good option. I'll be looking at getting Armstrong and a bit further down that line, tripling up on Southampton. I'm really hoping that they do really well against my team, Brighton. So, but nevertheless, for an FPL point of view, that looks the sensible move. For free hit, I think it's now. I think this is a really good week to free hit. Everton, Newcastle, Burnley, Arsenal, Spurs, Liverpool, Leicester all have great fixtures. I think it's a real high ceiling set of fixtures for the likes of Richie, for the likes of Aubameyang, for Spurs players. Take Leicester, for example. They're home to Brighton, my team. But do you want to load up to Leicester in game week 32 against Everton, for example? That's sort of less good. So this is a good week for Leicester, and perhaps the next 2 is an okay week for Leicester. Game week 36 is quite a good one, I think. Chelsea play Norwich, Everton play Villa, and City against Bournemouth. That looks like, if you haven't already loaded up by then with those players, and you're looking at those fixtures, and you get to 36, you've hardly got any of those types of players. Go absolutely mad on them, because these are terrible teams. But Everton against Villa, Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, Holgate, there you go, done. Chelsea playing Norwich, go for Pulisic. You're not going to want him long term, maybe. Free hit time, game week 36. So looking for high ceiling game weeks. That's what I think there. So
good shout with 36.
I think if you're wildcarding now, like yourself, and you have a free hit left, for example, then that's a really good move. I think wildcard now, or 33, and then game week 36. Have a look, see where you're at, and if you haven't loaded up on all those teams against those minnows, then go for it. Before we move on to game week 31 in earnest, anything to add really about chips?
No, not for me.
That's fine.
I think we covered it all.
That's fine. Game week 31, Andy. Let's not forget, we've got to get ready for game week 31. What players should we consider? What have the community been asking us?
Yeah, so like a lot of people are free hitting this week, as well as wildcard, and so lots of questions about players to get for this week only, and obviously some of them will probably be good for weeks to come as well. So is this a good time for a free hit? We've kind of already discussed that. Liverpool, Man United, Wolves, Spurs, Leicester, all good fixtures. And if you have got any leftover Sheffield United and Villa players, not quite as good as they were in game week 30 for sure. So Stoichkov asked like a really big question, to be fair. What would be your ideal team? So that we'll probably just boil that down to kind of key players for this week instead of full 11s. David O'Flaherty, what's the best game week 31 front three? Which I actually think is really tricky to call this week. There's a lot of options for this week only if you're not having to hold long term. And FPL Crate Digger, are any premium forwards worth considering, or will it be a strong week with mid-price forwards? So, you know, the likes of Aubameyang and Kane Aguero worth choosing for this week. So, Prano, we don't need a whole 11, but who think if you're a free hit in this week, your key 11 would be, and especially your front three this week?
My front three. I mean, there's the fixtures that stand out. There's Leicester versus Brighton. There's Wolves versus Bournemouth. There's United versus Sheffield. There's Liverpool versus Palace. I don't know actually if the Liverpool players will haul against Palace, who look fairly disciplined so far. The standout game for me is Everton versus Norwich. On my wildcard, I'm doubling up on Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin. So I like them a lot because Norwich looked the leakiest out of all the teams in the game week that we just saw. So I like them a lot. We also have Spurs versus West Ham and Newcastle versus Villa. So, I mean, out of these options for the strikers, we have Vardy from Leicester, we have Jimenez, we have Rashford, we have DCL. And if you're really feeling lucky, like if you're on a free hit and if you're really feeling lucky and, you know, want to go for someone who nobody else has, Kane is an option on a free hit and a free hit only, just only if you feel like rolling the dice. I'm never against going against the grain, and if you feel like rolling the dice. There's a few midfielders I like as well. If you feel like a punt on Harvey Barnes, I like Adama Traore as a 1 week punt as well. I just think he looked so well and above everybody else. Watching that game was like watching Messi in FIFA 20 playing against like a really poor team. He was all over them. So I like Adama as a punt. Doherty has to be in there. Matt Ritchie, that you mentioned, I really like him. He's on set pieces. He's out of position. He's on penalties possibly. So again, he's got high upside. Luka Dean, I think Everton will again be all over Norwich. So I expect him to be fairly forward in that game. So he's a good option. Just some of the options that I like that I mentioned.
Yeah, some good options there. What about you, Joe? Anyone else to add to that for this week only?
I've made a stab at doing a team for this game week 31, and I would go for, depending on budget here, so I'd go for Pope or Lloris in goal. I would definitely have Matt Ritchie in there, Doherty, and I didn't have TAA in Alexander Arnold in the current game week, and my rank dropped 8,000 when all he got was a clean sheet and a bonus. So if he gets any attacking return, basically have him. He's a rank protector. Just have him. And Son, I definitely would want. I do think Mane would do well. Palace are the team that he scored one of the most out of, I think. He does like scoring against Palace. Richarlison, as you mentioned, or DCL, or both. Traore, another good option. Up front is really tricky. This is a really good week for strikers. Jimenez, Vardy, Aubameyang. Take your pick. There's lots going on there, and I would think if you think there's going to be some kind of rotation or some kind of injuries and those types of things and players not turning up, some Newcastle players, St Maximin, Joe Ellington on the bench could be quite useful. Justin at Leicester is a nice sort of handy enabler there, but I'd really go for those high impact defenders. Like Ritchie and Doherty and Alexander Arnold. I just think they'll be quite good options there.
Yeah, Trent, like I think he just showed he didn't have that great a game. Wasn't a huge amount of attacking threat, I guess. I mean, Everton did okay. He still comes away with 7 points for not really doing anything. Yeah. Another game, he doubles that. So, yeah, I think I would have Trent. I mean, I looked I think my first two strikers on the team sheet would be Jimenez and Calvert-Lewin. Then it would be just plus another one. So like, I would probably go for Vardy because I feel like he's a player I'm probably not going to own for most of the rest of the season. So I'd probably want to get him on a free hit because of that. If I wanted to punt, I would double Wolves' attack, I think, and go for Jota. The only worry is what formation will they line up with, because he's decent option in 3-5-2 or 3-4-3, but I think we've seen multiple times do better as a centre forward. And if Traore is going to come in, and I agree, he was so good when he came on. And if there's any player you kind of want to play in the second game with a slightly quicker than normal turnaround, it's someone like Traore. So they could switch to 3-4-3. And even Neto did good when he came on. So that's my only worry. But Jota, because it's Bournemouth, like Bournemouth are just rubbish and they always concede goals. So Jota and Jimenez, but there are so many options for that third spot. But I think Calvert-Lewin and Jimenez would be my two definites. I think I would have Son at West Ham. I wouldn't want a Spurs player. I wouldn't want to spend the money on Kane. That would kind of be detrimental to the rest of the team, I suppose. And you get Son for cheaper. A lot of people looking at Bergwijn now. To be fair, he has done really well. But I think, if I had to put some money on who's more likely to lose minutes out of Bergwijn or Son, it's not Son. That's all I'd say. Lucas Moura didn't play. I expect Dele Alli will possibly will be in contention for Lamella's spot. But Son and Kane, you'd expect to start pretty much every week. So Son for me. And then I kind of agree on defenders, to be honest. I think Doherty would be must-have at this stage. Trent, and then you could go for Man United defender, but Richie on penalties. I think he's still on penalties. Maybe a slightly better option for a 1 week punt for me. So yeah, free. I mean, it's exciting. I think I don't think I'd have any premium forwards, to be honest. I mean, Aubameyang versus Southampton is not awful by any stretch, but when I think about who I'd rather have in that midfield, I think Aubameyang would just end up eating too much of the budget. And Aguero, like Pranil said earlier, it could be that he plays Burnley, Jesus plays the next game, Aguero comes back in for the one after that. We just don't know yet. So that'd be a bit too much of a worry for me for Chelsea, I think. So yeah, lots of options for Gameweek 31.
People are asking actually a lot of questions on the chat about the Spurs assets. I'd just like to add that I think all of them are priced pretty correctly. You get what you pay for. I think Son is the best option of the lot. Ali is good. He's going to play as number 10. He's going to play in the Lamela position. And there's just this one comment from Mourinho that stood out in the post-match interview that he did, where he said that imagine that I have every week an option where Bergwijn plays 60 minutes and Moura comes or Moura plays 60 minutes and then Bergwijn comes on. The thing that tells me is that Son is untouchable, whereas Bergwijn and Moura could be rotated a fair bit.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And Moura's done well, hasn't he, this season? So there's no reason to completely take him out of that team. He's going to get a start at some point.
Let's move on to clean sheets, looking at the next four here. So this is looking for 31 and 32, 33, 34. And that shows, as we've been discussing, that Manchester United are the defence to target on paper. That's it, unless you're Roy Keane, and then just avoid them. Burnley, however, are doing really well, so that backs up getting Pope in as a Leno replacement. But as we'll see in future game weeks, it's looking a bit more better for Foster coming up soon as well. Wolves, great for defence, so I got Bolly, I'm quite happy with that. I do wish I had Doherty, obviously, because he is better.
Or even Saïss.
Wolves has got Bournemouth, and Saïss is good as well. Bournemouth, Villa, Arsenal and Sheffield United. West Ham, Tottenham and Chelsea, not so good, but it really improves, as Pranil was saying. Newcastle, Burnley, it gets better as well, so we'll see that in the coming game weeks. Tottenham, that backs up the Lloris punt as well. West Ham, Sheffield United, Everton and Bournemouth. Liverpool, Crystal Palace, and then they've got City, but then it gets better. Villa and Brighton. But with TAA, it doesn't matter what the fixtures are, you just get him in.
There is one player we haven't, really quick, because you kind of touched on that, but we haven't mentioned that. They just reminded me of in the chat. And it's one reason why I'm not convinced by Lloris is they do have Aurier 4.9.
Yeah.
And I don't really see anyone else taking his spot. Like he's been, I'd have to double check. I don't think he's missed many minutes under Mourinho. No. So you can get him for 0.4 million cheaper. Obviously, he does take up a defensive spot. Which could be the other consideration, but I think their fixtures are pretty good. If you think they're going to keep returns, it could be a nice.
Definitely for a really great option this week against West Ham.
Good shout, really good shout.
Yeah, if you're looking for high impact defenders, because we know he's got a goal in him, we know he's got assists in him. If Tottenham are going to steamroller West Ham, then I would not be surprised to see Ore picking up a 9, 10, 11, maybe 12 pointer, depending on the bonus. Meanwhile, Newcastle, next few. As we've mentioned, those fixtures, they've got Villa, Bournemouth and West Ham before City in Gameweek 34. The next three are amazing for all of their players. So they're really good for those enabler positions that we've been talking about there. So let's move on to differential. So last week I picked Elton John's favourite, Nketiah from Arsenal. So far, one blank. I'm hopeful that his fixtures show that in the next couple he can do a bit better. This week it's the turn of Pranel. Who will be the best low-owned differential over the next 4 game weeks, Pranel? Who will it be?
So yeah, we've spoken a lot about him in this chat. So my pick for the differential for the next 4 game weeks is going to be Matt Ritchie. I think the upside with him is pretty high. I like his price point. There's a slight rotation threat, but with Villa, Bournemouth and West Ham coming up next, I like it. I like him as a short-term differential if you're chasing.
Yeah, good option. I've just been singing his praises for the last hour, so I'm not going to dispute that. I think it's a great shout. I sort of wish I'd gone for Matt Ritchie last week. But yeah, a really good shout. Andy, do you approve or disapprove?
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I completely forgot about him. Like I talked about Newcastle defenders a lot in the run up to Game Week 30. Lascelles very cheap. Fernandes a little bit more if you want, maybe slightly more attacking threat. I completely forgot Matt Ritchie was playing out of position. So it's a great shout. Like, actually, I think Newcastle. Like if I was going to pick a differential as well this week, I think that's where I would look. But Seb Maximin's 0.9 million. Like he's like probably the only good reason to watch Newcastle. He's so fun to watch.
Like a mini Adama.
Yeah, he's like skillful. He looked sharp as well. He looked on it.
Yeah.
I really don't think there was many players like De Bruyne I would add to that who just looked a step above everyone else. There wasn't a huge amount of players that came back and were just like they hadn't really been on a break, but he was one. 0.9. So yeah, I like Ritchie and him.
And Joe Ellington as well.
I'm not having that.
Matching Aubameyang, the mighty Aubameyang, with those shots in the box.
Just a little shout out to Zofar. Even I forgot about Ritchie completely. Yeah. He was talking to me about it, and it makes full sense. As like
we're all Ritchie converts. Let's move on to our teams. Lots of people asking, saying, show us your teams. So here's the bit where we show you teams. So I'm going to go first because it's not tremendous amount of changes to make. So this was my wildcard lads from way back when the world was normal, and I wasn't going to make any transfer. I was just going to play Leno, but now I'm going to make a goalkeeper transfer, and it's going to be between Pope and Foster. If I was absolutely convinced Salah wasn't going to play, I would make the move to Mane and captain Mane. But I do think Salah's going to play. I'm not. I think Fernandes is the best captain shout this week out of my lot. But as you can see, I've got the vice captain on Jimenez, home to Bournemouth. I think that's a great fixture. To be honest, Calvert-Lewin as well, I think is a good shout. So that's me really. So very little changes really. Fernandes captain and boring goalkeeper move. Pranel, yours is a bit more exciting. You're wildcarding. So I'm sorry. For the benefit of our podcast listeners, I just wanted to remind people my team is in fact. I've got McCarthy, soon to be Foster in goal, Bolly, Fernandes with the Z, Alexander-Arnold, Grealish, Fernandes, captain, Salah, De Bruyne, Calvert-Lewin, Jimenez and Aubameyang, and first sub is Cantwell on my bench. So sorry about that, Pranel. I'm just going to read out your side and then you can tell me about why. So you've gone Button in goal, that's your backup goalkeeper. Foster currently, but that may change. Wan-Bissaka. For your Manchester United defender, Alexander-Arnold, Lascelles, Ngakia, is that how you pronounce it? I'm going on about my pronunciation all this time, fail there. Doherty, Saka, Richarlison, Mane, Son, Fernandes. That is a really good midfield, scary. Calvert-Lewin, Rashford, and Jimenez. So, yeah, are you vaguely settled on that? Yeah, tell us about that.
I mean, this was my team a couple of hours ago. I'm going to be tinkering until deadline tomorrow. There's one change that I've made actually because I was a little strapped for cash, and I'll just talk about that. I've shifted Rashford to Nketiah, and I've shifted Saka to Martial because we spoke about that. And also it gives me some more cash to have a playing fifth defender instead of Nketiah, or however you pronounce that name. So I'm more comfortable with that as well. I'm being very careful of not spreading my funds too much because there will be a point where I'll want my City assets back in. So I want to keep the funds constrained in the 8 on the pitch. So that's something that I'm keeping on the mind. I'll just talk about, we've touched upon most of these players. So I'll just briefly talk about them. DCL, Richarlison, we spoke about them. I love the Norwich fixture. Martial's in there. Jimenez is as obvious a pick as I can get. Mane or Salah, I still haven't made that decision. I will have cash now since that I've moved Rashford to Martial. Son is my favorite asset from the Spurs players. Bruno's in there. The Van Bissaka position is actually a position I'm not sure about. I'm very tempted to go Richie, but the way I play this game, I prefer shifting around the big hitters, and Van Bissaka fits my keep and forget position, so I like him there. And I'll have Trent, Lascelles, Doherty, and instead of Ndaka, I'll probably have Kiko Femenia. I like him also as a defender, as a budget defender for the run-in. So yeah, that's my team. I've looked at the fixtures. I'm looking to get City players in a couple of weeks. Not yet. So yeah, that's that.
Okay, so wildcarders, that's the team to copy because Pranel's in the top 400. But yes, depending on your ability to withstand not having KDB at all for a few game weeks. Andy, let's move on to yours. Yours a bit like mine in that you'll probably make a goalkeeper change, but I don't know. This looks a little bit different to the team I last saw you with. Yes, I'm just going to run through your team for the benefit of those listening on the podcast. You've got McCarthy in goal, Sace from Wolves, Alexander-Arnold and Maguire in a 3-4-3 with Fernandes captain, Martial, Vice, De Bruyne, Salah, Calvert-Lewin, Jimenez and Ings up front. And then you've got Leno on the bench, Taylor from Burnley and Hayden and Egan, who is of course suspended because he's been a naughty boy. So yeah, have you made any changes already? Or are you going to?
No, I don't know if I'm going to be honest. Like, I might just play McCarthy and not make that goalkeeper change. I guess the only thing that's drawing me to just do the change this week is I'm probably going to have to do it at some point. So why not this week when the rest of my team is okay? The only things I've looked at is maybe I'm still a little bit worried about Danny Ings and the amount of games they're going to have to play. The fact that he's had a break might help him, and I also like the fact that Hassan Hüttl tends to be quite open about when he's going to make changes to the team. So I'm going to keep him for now because I don't think Arsenal's that bad a fixture for him to play in anyway. And I kind of touched on what we already said earlier about Salah. I think he probably will start that game. The only thing for me, like captaincy-wise, is I don't think there's a standout this year. I think there's lots and lots of good options. I don't think there's a standout. So I'm probably going to just go for Fernandes. It's definitely not going to be Salah. I've kind of decided that already, or De Bruyne. It's going to be Fernandes, Martial, or Jimenez this week, I think, for me. And I just think it's a great time to play Sheffield United. Two really bad games for them. The only reason they kept a clean sheet in the first one was because Henderson, he's not playing. Egan's not playing. O'Connell's probably... In fact, I think just before we came on, Chris Wilder said it's going to be the same team. So it looks like Lundstrom's not going to play again. Same team, but obviously Egan will change and Henderson will change because they can't play. So I'm pretty sure that's what the quote that came out. So I think it's a great time to be playing him. And Fernandes has just been phenomenal. So he's where my captain is. I've actually got 2 million in the bank for this team as well. So I can do Sice to Doherty, for example. But I think it'd probably be Leno to Pope. Maybe Patricia, because even if I do Leno to Patricia, I can still afford Sice to Doherty. So if I feel like I really need him, I can still do it.
Got options. This
shows loads of options.
I mean, although, wildcarders, unlimited transfers, bench boosters so far are doing much better than us free hitters. Well, that's where it looks anyway. I think this shows the advantage of wildcarding early because you have got a really good team in place. Lockdown
transfers, yeah.
Yeah, and lockdown
because of the
transfers.
2 million, I can afford Martial to Son as well. If I really want Son, that's another way. I could do De Bruyne to Son. There's so many options, and I'm probably just going to do a goalkeeper change.
Yeah, that's the same with me. So I'm little things I'd like to change, but on the whole, quite happy to go in with this line. Fernandes, as you said, he's been so reliable ever since I got him in back in February. He's got me points every week. I think it's ridiculous, and because he replaced Son for me, that place in the team It's like the golden ticket in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's just like, wow. I couldn't believe it. I now believe it to be magic. If Fernandes goes and I get someone else in there, they will score heavily.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about, not really worried, that's the wrong word, but the fact that Rashford was going to take that second penalty, because Fernandes did talk about it, but he didn't really say it was because it was the second one of that game. He just kind of said because Rashford's also like a good taker as well. So I don't know who will take the next one, because although Fernandes has been doing great, he has padded those points a little bit with penalties. Which is fine because Man United get a lot of them, and I don't think that will change. But it's just who's going to take the next one, because that's one of the reasons it will make or break Rashford as well as a good option. So that's my only concern. But I just think he's got so much points potential elsewhere as well. It's probably where I end up going.
Yeah, he was by far the best player on the pitch against Spurs, and that, to be honest, that's been the case in all Manchester United games I've seen recently with him on the pitch. He's just above the rest. No offence to other Manchester United players. Roy Keane, for example. So let's move on to the final end. I just want to remind people that any stats we've been reading out and some of the season ticket information as well, they're all from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. So please do have a look at that on site. Sign up. Lots of invaluable information there. Also, please like if you've enjoyed this episode and subscribe. That keeps you notified about all the videos and the podcasts that are coming up. In the meantime, it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you, guys. Good luck.
Goodbye all.